governments of Africa to build educational synergies for the continent's growth. Accra High Court orders impending #Kromayeshi demonstration to end at 4 p.m. on Tuesday. A plea for Parliament to expedite passage of the Community Service Sentencing Bill into law to decongest the country's
and the African
prisons.
Development Bank promises $3 billion over the next 10 years for vaccine self-sufficiency on the continent. Good evening. We are live on GTV and GBC News as well as DSTV on channel 278 for News Hour. My name is Clara Mlano.
Good evening. My name is Shirley and Jonathan Intim Darko translates the news into sign language. The Vice President, Dr. says building collaboration and synergies between governments in Africa on the educational front will support efforts to produce qualified human capital to spur on economic growth of the continent.
At the World Bank's Education Strategy for West and Central Africa Forum, Dr. Baumia said key steps such as rationalization of the education system to achieve better coherence, cooperation and coordination is the conduit towards the expected change.
Scale-up comprehensive education in both Western and Central Africa has brought finance and education ministers from the respective regions of Africa to Accra to strategize on challenges to education. The Accra Call to Action strategy covers the entire education spectrum, from early childhood development, primary and secondary education, technical, vocational education and training. Other aspects are higher education and as well as lifelong learning. The forum also discussed priorities and investments needed to advance reforms, improve learning, and reimagine education systems to help Africa's youth to fulfill their full potential. To the World Bank, West and Central Africa have the largest youth population on the continent, and the overriding objective of From School to Jobs, a journey for the young people of Western and Central Africa, is the right path to unearth skills and potential of these young people. Ghana's Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Oforiatta, said the human resource of any nation is its young population, and transforming them through quality education holds the key to economic transformation.
We must therefore remain focused on helping our 30 million children to read by 2030, ensuring that 12.5 million more adolescent girls are in school by 2030, training at least 3.7 million more young adults in foundational skills by 2025, and ensuring that at least 1 million more youth acquire digital skills by 2025, of whom 60% will be expected to then obtain better jobs.
The World Bank's Vice President for West and Central Africa, Mr. Osmani Digana, said the World Bank's education strategy will build a new crop of Africans to lead economic transformation.
A nation cannot be built. An economy cannot be prosperous without solid foundation, and the foundation must be education.
The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, said countries in West and Central Africa must have a common platform to share ideas on education to train quality human capital for development.
We will not be able to deliver change without building and sustaining political momentum in the region. In many of the region's countries, more efforts are needed to rationalize the governance of education systems to achieve greater coherence, cooperation, and coordination.
The Accra Call for Action also has other strategic themes: finance and governance, tackling learning, poverty and foundational skills, technical vocational education and training, and tertiary education and skills. The World Bank holds the view that such training is what can transform Africa's education structure to support its economic growth.
The Criminal Court 4 Division of the Accra High Court has ordered organizers of the Arise Ghana #Kromayeshi demonstration to end their public at 4 p.m. Tuesday, June 28, 2022. The court, presided over by Justice Comfort Tasiame, gave the directive after the police filed an application for the court to determine the venue and time appropriate for the intended protest, which organizers scheduled to close at 8 p.m. The court also directed that the march should start at 8 a.m. from the Kwame Nkrumah Circle through Farisco and TUC to the Independence Square. The Arise Ghana organizers intended a two-day demonstration from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. each day. However, in court on Monday, June 27, 2022, the police, through DSP Sylvester Asari, explained that recent terror attacks on neighboring Togo and within the sub-region makes such arrangement unsafe. Counsel for the Arise Ghana, Mr. Godwin Eldridge Tamaklo, said the police had not indicated how the incident in Togo comes to play in a demonstration scheduled to take place on 3 p.m. into the night. He said the organizers had showed good faith and willingness to engage the police over disagreement on the time. The police service filed the application at the court seeking a determination of the time and location of the pressure group for the intended demonstration. The police service said the proposed time for the march will not guarantee the safety of demonstrators and other members of the public and urged the organizers to hold the protest early in the day. The court, presided over by Justice Comfort Tasiame, directed that the march start from the Obrasport through Farisco Avenue to TUC and end at the Independence Square at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, June 28, 2022, and not 8 p.m. as intended by the organizers.
Participants at a forum on community service sentencing have called on Parliament to expedite passage of the bill into law to decongest the country's prisons. They proposed that non-custodial sentences should be considered in offences that attract sentences less than 3 years.
On community service sentencing was sponsored by the USAID Justice Sector Support Activity. Participants included officials from the National Peace Council, security agencies, civil society organizations, traditional rulers, and the Legal Aid Board. Discussions centered on the various offenses under Ghana's criminal justice system. The participants were of the view that the country's prisons have exceeded their limits. They asserted that persons who commit minor offences are kept in custody, with those who commit serious offences they become hardened criminals upon their release. The program manager of the Africa Office of Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, Mrs. Esther Ahulu, said the country's judicial system has been empowered with custodial sentences, and keeping inmates in already congested prisons is a drain on the country's budget. An official of the Criminal Records Department of the Ghana Prison Service, Superintendent Francis Appel, indicated that overcrowding at the prisons pose a health risk to prisoners and therefore called on partners to ensure that the prisons are decongested.
The way forward to have a safer community is to reduce the congestion in the prisons so that we can really touch lives and change people.
The Africa Office Director of Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, Madam Mina Mensah, advocated the speedy passage of the Community Service Sentencing Bill.
I think that it is time that we educate the populace, the citizenry, that when this law comes into effect, we would all cooperate and help so that when somebody is sentenced to community time, we will not see it as being lenient on the person, but we will see it as part of our developmental process and something that will help our communities grow.
You're still watching News Hour Live on GBC News, your news and governance channel. Parliament has passed a criminal and other offences amendment bill to provide for plea bargaining in the administration of criminal justice. When assented to, the law will ensure the speedy trial of cases and help decongest the prisons. It will also ensure, among other things, the reduction in caseload of the courts and prosecutors, saving the state time and money by avoiding long and protracted trials, decongestion of the prisons due to reduced sentencing, and aiding in the reform of convicted people. In an earlier interview with GBC News, a legal practitioner, Mr. Benjamin Antiedu, explained which offences or cases will be permissible in this bill.
Criminal and Other Offences Act 1960 Act 30. The counterpart is the Criminal Offences Act 1960 Act 29. They've been in existence for over 60 years, 6 decades. And of course, a lot of tremendous changes have taken place in criminal justice delivery across the globe. And so this is one of the areas that, have been given attention, and there's so many other areas that will even come up. Remember that we are even considering introducing other forms of punishment, community service, and the rest of them. You see, so yes, the Attorney General from his memo to Parliament indicated that there have been some limited cases of plea bargaining in our system already. But of course, they were very limited. So that's why its popularity was not even known. But they say it's better late than never. So, and this to push for more of the reforms so that we can move forward as a country.
It's still news live on GTV and GBC News. The Minister for Information, Mr. Kojo Nkrumah, is advocating stiffer punishments for perpetrators of crimes against journalists in their line of duty. He called on the judiciary, in particular, to hand down severe judgments to culprits of attacks on journalists, irrespective of their social status and political affiliations to others. Mr. Nkrumah was speaking in Ho at a training program to strengthen the role of the judiciary in protecting freedom of expression and safety of journalists in the country.
The training program was organized by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, as part of its training of trainers from Judicial Training Institute in Africa on freedom of expression and safety of journalists. The program is tailored to deepen the capacity of prosecutors and judges in dealing with matters of freedom of expression and safety of journalists. Participants included 25 judges from the High and Appeals Court. The country representative for UNESCO, Mr. Abdurrahmani Diallo, said issues of freedom of expression and safety of journalists are key components of democracy, which ought to be safeguarded by duty bearers, arbitration authorities, and the security service. He said freedom of expression and safety of journalists are indices that determine how compliant or negligent a country is with regards to its constitutional provisions on fundamental freedoms and rights.
Freedom of expression, access to information, and the safety of journalists are fundamental freedoms and indices determining how compliant or negligent a country is relative to its constitutional provision on these fundamental freedoms.
An appeals court judge, Mr. Justice Dennis Ajay, who represented the Chief Justice, stressed the need for effective collaboration among partners in the country's media landscape to ensure that infringements on the safety of journalists are eliminated.
Function is to build the capacity of judges, because when we talk about freedom of expression and safety of journalists, wherever it happens, it will end up in the court. And in the courtroom, we are going to decide, and whatever we decide becomes the law. Even though we have the substantive law, it is the judge who will brief into the law by offering interpretation that will, at the end of the day, become a stare decisis and be binding or having persuasive effect on the court, as the case may be.
The Minister for Information, Mr. Kojo Nkrumah, said though the National Media Commission rolled out mechanisms to resolve some of the early reports of infringement on journalists, inadequate funding to enable it to effectively execute the mechanisms has not been forthcoming. He was hopeful that the training program will stimulate keener response from prosecutors and the judiciary when dealing with cases of infringements against journalists.
It will be the strongest message to the next batch of state and non-state actors who may even contemplate attacking a media practitioner in the line of his work, that it is not acceptable, and more importantly, the courts will severely punish you if you dare.
The country representative for UNESCO, Mr. Abdurrahmani Diallo, and his team earlier handed over equipment to management of the University of Health and Allied Sciences towards their smart classroom project. The equipment, worth $200,000, include touch panels, high-speed scanners, and display and LCD writing boards. The Vice-Chancellor of the university, Mr. John Owusu Japon, thanked UNESCO for the gesture.
The heads of the security agencies in the Ashanti region have been commended for being up to the task of ensuring that the region remains peaceful. The Ashanti Regional Minister, Mr. Simon Osei-Mensah, who formally praised the heads, said their commitment to duty has helped to reduce particularly highway robberies. He was the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council in Kumasi, first time since COVID-19 broke out in 2019.
Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council is the highest decision-making body at the regional level, representing the political and administrative machinery of government. It has the mandate to monitor, coordinate and evaluate the performance of the regional departments, 43 metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies, as well as other public institutions and agencies in the region, with the view to ensuring effective and efficient service delivery. Addressing a meeting of the council in Kumasi since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2019, the Ashanti Regional Minister, Mr. Simon Osei-Mensah, made reference to some riots in the region in the past few years, which led to clashes between a cross-section of the public and some security personnel, a situation described as unfortunate. He indicated that in the wake of the security alert issued by the Ministry of National Security on the possibility of terrorist activities in the country, all and sundry should be on high alert and very vigilant and conscious of personal security. Touching on decentralization, Mr. Osei-Mensah noted that most assemblies have not lived up to expectation in respect to revenue generation. He decried the failure of most assemblies to effectively exploit resources in their areas for the benefit of their people.
What I wish to touch on this morning and appeal to assemblies to critically handle is encroachment of school land, especially schools which are close to markets, artisans, garages, and in prime areas of cities and towns are facing encroachment from private individuals. Apart from the noise which emanates from the encroachment affecting teaching and learning, students and people are distracted.
The Kumasi Supervising High Court Judge, Justice Kofi Akroya, who swore the RCC members into office, encouraged the MMDCEs to collaborate with the district magistrates to ensure peace and security in their respective regions.
Ghana's ambassador to Burkina Faso, Mr. Boniface Gambila, says he's worried about unscrupulous persons who lure some unsuspecting youth in the Upper East region to travel to Burkina Faso under the pretext of assisting them to travel abroad for job opportunities. He was speaking in an interview with GBC News at Paga.
What we encounter these days in Burkina Faso is that some scammers lure the youth in Ghana to Burkina Faso to dupe them, to defraud them. That is a business. And what these scammers, the ringleaders do, is to deceive someone. You pay as much as 5,000 Ghana cedis, 15,000 Ghana cedis, and that you come to Burkina Faso. And they are able to send you to South Africa, to Dubai, to UK, to Germany to work. A lot of Ghanaians, we have repatriated them. Even last week, we repatriated twice the youth back to Bolgatanga for them to get back to their homes. So it's a deceit to the youth. So the youth of this country, Ghana, I want them to know, to hear from me, that QNet business is a scam.
The National Identification Authority still has over 1 million Ghana cards to be issued to its owners. The NIA says it is devising systems and strategies to get the cards closer to the people in the next couple of days to enable them to use them.
Identification card registration started about 5 years ago, with the mass registration ending in January this year. However, with the legislation passed to link the Ghana card with the telcos and other state institutions, the registration was further extended and is expected to end on the 30th of June this year. In an interview with the head of corporate affairs at the National Identification Authority, NIA, Dr. Abudu Abdul Ganiyu, registration of the Ghana card can be done at the regional and district offices of the National Identification Authority, NIA, even after the 30th June deadline. Contrary to reports that one needs to pay for the Ghana card, Dr. Abdul Ganiyu said registration for first-timers is still free. However, there are exceptions where a fee is charged in case one misplaces his or her card or changes name.
There are instances where fees and charges apply, but for anyone else going to the regional and the district office to register for a Ghana card for the first time, you don't pay anything. It remains the same even in this particular phase where we have established the permanent regional and district offices. As you go to any of them, registration there is for free. But it is very possible that somebody has lost the card and the person has gone to the regional office for a replacement. It is the replacement of the card that will come at a fee of 30 Ghana cedis. So when you have lost your card, you have gone to the police, picked up an extract. In other words, having informed the police that your card is missing, then the police issue you with an extract. That one, you take it to the NIA regional office, then a new card will be printed for you at a cost of 30 Ghana cedis. And then there are also individuals who may want to update their record. So married, maiden name or something else, now changed to another name because you want to adapt that of your husband's name. The law requires that you do an affidavit, you do a gazette, and then you take it to the NIA. NIA can print a new card for you, having done the update, because name would appear on the face of the card. So anything that would appear on the face of a card, once a change has been made, it will require that we print a new card, which will come at a cost of 30 Ghana cedis to you. Then we have also set up premium registration centers. We have a number of premium registration centers. At the headquarters, we have a premium registration center. Then the Carl Bank headquarters, premium registration is also taking place. So individuals going to these premium centers, they pay an amount of 250 Ghana cedis.
Dr. Abdul Ganiyu said the deadline is to pave way for the state institutions that will need to link the Ghana card with details of their customers in transacting businesses to do so by the 1st of July this year. The NIA says it will put in place measures to roll out the acquisition of the Ghana card in phases for babies and those below the age of 15 years. Daily registration of the national card, according to the NIA, is still ongoing at the regional and district offices of the National Identification Authority, NIA.
A senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, Dr. Kenneth Asamoah-Gyimah, is calling on government and stakeholders in education to introduce innovative policies to help transform Ghana's educational system. Dr. Gyimah believes an improved teaching and learning approach can support national development. Dr. Kenneth Asamoah-Gyimah was speaking at the Armstrong Emisa Memorial Lecture in Accra as part of the centenary celebrations of the Wesley College of Education in Kumasi.
Past 100 years, the Wesley College of Education has nurtured some high-profile personalities in society, including Ghana's former president, Mr. John Ejikun Kufuor. On the theme, Shaping Ghana's Educational Transformation, the role of Wesley College at the Armstrong Emisa Memorial Lecture, a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, Dr. Kenneth Asamoah-Gyimah, said, Ghana's educational system is at a critical phase that currently requires the attention of all for the needed transformation. He believes such strategic reforms can meet the needs of students, educators and industry. For Dr. Jima, more importantly, such a transformation will help to remediate students who fall behind the status quo to be brought on board to address what he identified as the No Child Left Behind agenda.
Reforms to education are needed if we are to better meet the different needs of our students and educators in the various schools.
Dr. Kenneth Asamoah-Jima also wants the government to refine the role of teachers to focus on higher impact activities by teaching the 21st century skills using computers.
Students must develop the knowledge and skill for today and tomorrow's workplace, further education or training.
The Wesley College of Education is to climax its centenary event with November 19, 2022 in Kumasi. The Wesley College of Education in Kumasi is one of the pioneering training colleges in Ghana, established at Kemp near Ebri in 1922 and later moved to Kumasi on March 3, 1924. The college over the years has provided students with a better and clearer career path in the field of teaching.
Ahead of the launch of the National Cathedral Week celebrations in July, the Board of Trustees and management of the National Cathedral have interacted with leaders of the various church groups in Ghana on the status of the project. The week-long activities seek to ultimately raise awareness on the construction of this historic monument.
It was in 2020 that construction of Ghana's National Cathedral began. The project comprised three main components: a biblical garden, a biblical museum and an auditorium to accommodate over 5,000 expandable to 20,000 people at a sitting. The anticipation is that if this project is constructed, the benefit would be enormous and the ripple effect could be experienced in all facets of Ghanaian society. As part of the construction of the project, the Board of Trustees and the Secretariats intend to launch a National Cathedral Celebration Week to increase awareness of the National Cathedral project. The National Cathedral Week celebration, which will be launched next week Wednesday, will run from 4th to 10th July. According to the organizers, the period will be used to explain to the public issues surrounding the construction of the cathedral and the need for Ghana to have such a facility, especially at this time of the nation's life. Interacting with leaders of the various church groups in person and on Zoom, the chair of the Board of Trustees, Dr. Apostle Opoko-Nyina, explained the current ownership of the building, which he says is on state-private ownership basis, the selection of members constituting the Board of Trustees, and the award of the architectural and structural design contract to Mr. David Ajay.
There is nothing fishy about monetary affairs at all. We cannot betray the trust you have given to us. The government, in particular the Office of President, Minister of Finance and the Attorney General, have been asked to address some of the key questions relating to issues of procurement, disbursement and legal status. These are not issues trustees can answer. For the was appointed by the president before he even appointed the trustees.
The chief executive of the National Cathedral, Dr. Paul Opoku-Mensah, spoke about the current state of the project and also responded to some allegations concerning the cathedral, particularly on monies paid to some gospel artists.
Assure all of you that the Secretariat of the National Cathedral the trustees have not paid $50,000 to the artist Sonny Bedu for his performance in Washington, D.C. on February 8, 2019. I want to just explain this a little bit. One of the things we've tried to do, because of the partnership with the state and the church, was to say, look, how do we make the implementation of the National Cathedral a celebratory event for the church? And so at all our events, we've tried to use some of the best of our gospel singers.
Members present asked questions and unanimously pledged their support towards the work of the Board of Trustees, the Secretariat, and the construction of the National Cathedral project. Gifty AJ, GBC News, Accra.
It was an epoch-making event when the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Osman Nuhu Shaributu, Vice President Dr. Muhammadu Bawumia, and Reverend Father Andrew Campbell launched Father Campbell's SVD Foundation at the Christ the King Parish in Accra. Father Campbell's SVD Foundation is a charitable organization that focuses on leprosy advocacy, street children welfare, and child health care. Dr. Bawumia urged all to consider help for the vulnerable as a calling by God. It's the National Chief Imam Sheikh Osman Nuhu Shaributu's second visit to a church. The first was during the 2019 Easter festivities. This time, the Chief Imam joined the Vice President Dr. Muhammadu Bawumia for the launch of Father Campbell's SVD Foundation. Reverend Father Andrew Campbell says the first leg of the foundation is to give a decent life to street children. It will focus on giving these street children 3 healthy meals a day, offer them employable skills as well as shelter. The second leg of the foundation is on advocacy for lepers. The foundation will solicit for fines to provide food, pay utility bills, maintain residence of the lepers at the Wager Leprosarium, whose ages range between 3 years and 103 years old. The last leg of the SVD Foundation is to work to improve on child health and support underprivileged mothers to take care of their children.
The street children, I've started in a small way in Wager, and we've got one young boy at the Don Bosco Center in Tema, and he's learning a trade there. Again, a lot of expenses. I've also been given by the government 4 plots of land in the Denta for humanitarian purposes. I want to build a hostel there for the street children. I want to build some workshops for them. That will also require assistance.
The spokesperson for the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Arimeyao Shaibu, said the visit to the parish shows the cordial relationship between Christians and Muslims and belief the Chief Imam has in the work of Reverend Father Andrew Campbell.
Father Campbell is not afraid of destitution, and he is a friend of the rejected and the rejected of society. This brings meaning to religion. What is the use of religion if it's not accompanied by such a pure spirit of humanitarian concern? The Chief Imam shares these values with Father Campbell, and in that regard, the eminent Chief Imam wants to be quick in responding to this by giving his 5,000 Ghana cedis.
Dr. Muhammadu Bawumia, who is the patron of the SVD Foundation, said Father Campbell is pursuing a noble cause and all must support him.
They are not doing it for personal benefit, they are doing it for humanity. And when we help the poor, we help all of us, we help ourselves.
Reverend Father Andrew Campbell provides for more than 1,000 lepers. He played a key role in the Wager Leprosarium, renovation work at the Ankafor Leprosy General Hospital, the Laboratory for Leprosy and Skin Conditions at Wa, and the Leprosy Clinic at Kokofu.
We have more news coming up. Please stay with us.
Almost 2 months now since the electronic transaction levy e-levy was implemented, but latest report shows that less than 60 million cedis has been mobilized. This, according to revenue authorities, the e-levy is not living up to expectation, and government needs to quickly find ways to shore up its revenue mobilization in order to meet its statutory and debt obligations, as well as win the confidence of investors. Initial projections made by government about the e-levy was that it will garner about 2 to 3 billion cedis annually. The introduction of the e-levy generated controversy not only in Parliament but also among the citizenry. This led to delay of the passage of the e-levy bill for about 5 months, causing government to lose revenue. Now the question is, if the government or the revenue expected to be generated through e-levy continues to be below expectation, what should be done by government? While others say the only option available is the IMF because it will help restore investors' confidence in the economy, though the bailout will come with some strings attached to it. Others say government should put in a mechanism to bolster revenue generation through property rates. Lack of sustainable revenue mobilization, unemployment and fluctuations on the foreign exchange markets undermine growth of the private sector. The Minister for Trade and Industry, Mr. Alan Kyerematen, said this can be addressed when government channels resources to the private sector. He said this at the launch of the National Business Resource Centers, BRCs, here in Accra. Business Resource Centers, BRCs, were established by the Ministry of Trade and Industry as part of government's industrial transformation agenda. They were funded by the International Fund for Agricultural Development and the African Development Bank, AFDB. The centers are managed and operated under a franchise arrangement with the Ghana Enterprises Agency. BRCs provide a broad range of business development services and operate as financial and investment facilitation hubs and business information repositories for micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs. For startups, the services provided include business opportunity, business identification and concept validation, while existing companies are provided with business health check and diagnosis, business counseling and mentorship, among others. Since August 2020, the first 37 BRCs have been operational. So far, BRCs have supported over 20,000 MSMEs. The Minister for Trade and Industry, Mr. Alan Kyerematen, urged MSMEs to take advantage of international trade agreements signed with other countries, which grants MSMEs significant market access opportunities for value-added products under duty-free, quota-free trading regime.
Over 90% of our enterprises belong to the informal sector. And if we want to be able to expand our tax base, we can only do so by formalizing the micro, small and medium enterprise sector. The key to the transformation of our country does not lie in our natural resource endowment, but how we mobilize our human capital and unleash the entrepreneurial spirit of Ghanaians.
The Chief Executive, Ghana Enterprises Agency, Mrs. Kosi Yankee, said as part of the COVID-19 response funds, about 99% of funds were disbursed within 6 months.
In partnership with the Business Resource Centers, we will ensure that the MSMEs of this nation have the tools, have the resources to be able to build and move forward.
GBC News spoke to general managers of WA and Greater Accra Business Resource Centers.
Now we expect that there will be an influx of a lot of business. It is our duty to now see how we can reach out and support them with credit.
The BRCs are available to all categories of enterprises. The launch was also used to acknowledge MSMEs as the world marks MSME Day. And that's it for the business segment, proudly brought to you by MTN. Coming up is the energy segment. Please stay.
Hello and welcome to the Energy segment on News Hour. My name is Mabel Anang. To our first story. Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, Mr. Duncan Amoah, says government's failure to adequately prepare against petroleum crisis is having a bad effect on the country. According to him, government has not heeded the caution by various players in the industry against cushioning and providing solutions to Ghana's fuel challenges. Mr. Duncan Amoah believes that depending solely on the storage capacity of bulk distribution companies is delicate for Ghana as a country. He said the bulk oil storage and transportation facility BOST has deviated from its mandate of storing crude oil for difficult times.
You shouldn't have a country that solely depends on, what the private BDCs are able to store for all of us. There was a good reason for which we put up a bulk oil storage and transportation facility. I have said that has been modeled just similar to the Oklahoma cushioning in the United States. What they are able to do is to store crude for as long as they could, so that when times are difficult, they can release crude to the market just to augment or, simply help. They plan for the rainy day. We fail to plan. We simply, we buy and sell. That's all we do. And for which reason, if you read a lot of the papers, BOST is making profit. At the time that I am worried about what I pay for fuel, at the time that I pay for a certain BOST margin to maintain a facility, at the time that I still pay PDM, for BOST to be able to move product from depot to depot. The only benefit I'm getting is that BOST says it has made profit. Well, it would sound good, but go back to what you were set out for in 1993 when we decided as a country to have a buffer.
We bring you some data on national power generation and the water level in the Akosombo and Bui Dam.
Welcome to the health segment brought to you by Lufat. Hydroxyurea, an essential drug to manage sickle cell diseases, is officially a free prescription drug in the country. This is because hydroxyurea has now been included onto the National Health Insurance Scheme's essential medical list. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, announced this at the memorial for the late renowned pediatric hematologist and global advocate for sickle cell management, Professor Emeritus Kweku Ohinefrimpong, who on May 7 this year at age 76. A report by Sarah Ofori.
Were glowing tributes from colleagues, partners, patients, and caregivers, both home and abroad, in honor of Professor Kweku Ohinefrimpong. His relentless efforts to enroll children with sickle cell disease for a comprehensive management could be overemphasized.
Kof was persistent in his quest to get every baby born in Ghana to be screened for sickle cell disease. When it came to newborn screening, there's only one word I used to describe Kof: relentless.
His wife, Janet Ohene Frimpong, says her husband's vision for Ghana was a country with the best education and health care.
He wanted Ghana's people to be able to invest in themselves so that when folks needed the best education, the best health care, and the best opportunities, they'd be able to get it right here in their own country and not have to travel elsewhere. That's why as soon as he could, he started bringing resources home. And had he not been that way, he would have never been the man for me. Enough said.
Mr. Kwame Ohene Frimpong, Professor Ohene Frimpong's son, was deceased in his 40s, but his only daughter, Madame Efia Odi Ohene Frimpong, said her father taught them to be good and independent.
I'll miss dancing with my father at parties. I'll miss his protection and his advice. But he's resting now.
Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia described Professor Ohene Frimpong as a man driven to do good and through whose persuasion hydroxyurea has now been included into the National Health Insurance Scheme essential drug list.
In his memory was going to adopt hydroxyurea under the National Health Insurance Scheme for sickle cell sufferers. And I think this would be a fitting memory for him. He was a really, really, really good person, highly intelligent, but highly humble.
Professor Kweku Ohene Frimpong was driven to find a permanent cure for sickle cell diseases the moment his son was diagnosed of sickle cell at birth. At the time, he was a medical student at the Yale School of Medicine. For 5 decades, he devoted his life and resources to investigate the disease, advocate and oversee to newborn screening programs. His priority was to develop more effective and modern procedures and technologies that would relieve both sickle cell patients and caregivers of the burden in the management of the disease. As a renowned hematologist of international repute, he founded various centers for the management of sickle cell diseases, authored many publications, and won many laurels. He introduced newborn screening and the administration of the life-saving hydroxyurea in Ghana. He is said to have died of metastatic lung cancer. Sarah Furi, GBC News.
May you so rest in peace. The health segment was brought to you by Lufat.